Welcome to the show. We hope you have a blast. Thanks for making time for the Dealer Talk podcast. Another business leader, here's a penny for your
What up? Welcome to another episode of the Dealer Talk podcast. This is your host, Herb Anderson. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today is an amazing session. We have none other than Lissette Gole from Google. And we're going to be talking about a couple different things. So I'm super excited. Lissette, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. It's so exciting to be here. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, no, likewise. I'm super stoked. I know we talked about this, I think it was a month or so ago to set this up, and I've been stoked ever since. So
Same.
Should be good. All right. So I kicked things off with a background. So tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. So I am approaching nearly 20 years in the automotive space. Prior to my work at Google, which has been for the last 9 years, I had experience over at the agency side, and thus far in the nearly 20-year career have had the pleasure of working across all of the OEMs in the industry across all tiers. And there's no place I would rather be.
Right on. Yeah, no, for sure. So I guess I wanted to kind of kick this conversation off talking about Google My Business, and that's been probably one of those topics that I've covered a lot this season. And the reason, obviously, I think that in the COVID landscape that we live in today, it's kind of taken a little bit more of a priority, I would say. So I guess can we just kick it off 50,000? Like how important is the GMB for dealerships?
Well, I am glad you're talking about it a lot this year, especially with everything that's transpired in 2020, and digital has become only more important as an entry point for our dealerships. GMB is really a cornerstone to that. And there's a lot of new development that's actually happened in the product over the course of this year to only further help our dealers make sure that they are able to put their hours, their photos, their new vehicle sales and fixed stops online. So it is a really robust platform. And at the 30,000 foot view, I think extremely important to make sure that that you are using GMB first of all, and have the hygiene there to make sure that it's up to date. You have access to it. You can change your own listings within Google My Business when you need to and update them. And then really using it as the tool that it is to showcase your dealership for anybody who's searching for you.
Right on. So let's talk about that for a second, because, first, there's a lot of stores that I notice are not really utilizing. In some cases, they haven't even claimed it properly. Like there's a whole bunch of issues. But strictly to the current landscape that we have right now, should we be posting content in our GMBs about the things that we're doing differently at the dealership, and kind of the situation that we're in?
You absolutely should. So it is another entry point for customers to get to know you as a dealership. And so a component of that is all of the great things that you're doing right now, and how you're pivoting your business model to meet the need of the customer and ensure that they can still find you for sales and service. So things like making sure that you are talking about, if you're doing at-home deliveries, absolutely talk about that. If you have changed your showroom and service hours, we should absolutely be updating those on Google My Business. Yeah. Consider that as a main point to get information. So if we've seen a lot of dealerships change their cleaning protocol. And that is a great thing to talk about on Google My Business as well. So I would absolutely want everybody to continue to update their attributes to make sure that that they are being reflective of all the work that you're doing in the dealership right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then the other thing is, what about this concept of multiples, right? Because I know that in years past, it was, I don't know if frowned upon is the right word, but it was, it wasn't really a common practice. Let me put it that way. And I think now there's actually a benefit to separating. So having a Google My Business for sales, one for service, and also one for parts. Are you guys seeing that? Like, do you recommend that?
I would absolutely recommend that as a best practice. And if just even for the simple purposes, you have different hours and a different phone number for each of those areas of your business. And so we want Google My Business to be accurate in that way. So absolutely, if you haven't broken out your GMB listings yet for parts, service, and then your vehicle sales, definitely consider doing so, because maybe you are not open for your showroom, but you are open for service and you're taking service appointments. And that just makes it that much easier for people to come into your dealership. The idea is use the digital platforms to your advantage in that you can help customers reach you easier. So that's really what the power of digital is for the dealerships, and the power of Google My Business. Let that be a way that they can get into your dealership faster.
Yeah, and then I'd say, so this is a practice that I've been doing. So I think it'd be great to get your feedback on this. But as you especially for service, right? As you create more content, more service content, not just the service page with the cutout coupons, no, like actual pages of content. Put those on the back end of your GMB, like in the keywords, and then notice how in there it'll link back to those pages, because it finds that information and it says, okay, they're talking about oil changes, and it serves that up on the GMB. So I think but you have to build the content first. You have to have that content first, and then kind of link it on your Google My Business page for the service side. So.
Yeah, I mean, content really is important for Google My Business like it is for your website. So think about things like photos, logos, interior, exterior photos. 360 photos are great for Google My Business. And what you were saying earlier is uploading that to Google My Business and seeing what that does in terms of traffic. That can all be, you can look at that through analytics. So we do have a reporting service through GMB where you can actually see how, is that making a difference? How are people interacting with that content that you're posting? It's a great way to understand what people are reacting to specifically for your dealership.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because I agree. I do it through UTM coding, so I'll add these codes to certain areas of the GMB, and then I can track it in the GA. But it's interesting because I often see that as one of the top, at least in the top 10 sources. And not only that, but I can if I go deep into that traffic, I can see that customer comes multiple times. So that customer will come in through the GMB, they'll leave, they'll come back through, and they'll come back in through the GMB multiple times. It's kind of interesting how that behavior happens. Do you guys see that as well in your guys' analysis?
So we don't have access to that analysis. It belongs to the particular dealers. But what we do know in looking at search more holistically is that customers don't necessarily come back once and find exactly what they need. So they will come back multiple times, different days, different moments, different consideration points. And what you're saying and what you see in GMB is that is no different in that environment as it would be with general search queries and behavior too. The great thing about Google My Business is it's there whenever you need it. So If I need to pick up the phone and call a dealership today, great. I've made that appointment there, and tomorrow I need to come back to Google My Business to find the maps listing and to find the address. So it's such a wealth of information that absolutely you can come back and forth and find what you need in any moment.
Yeah. All right. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, just as far as a best practice, is posting our products. I don't know, for service, it would occur to me, your service specials, you could post those, or on the sales side. I mean, it'd be difficult to do used cars because of the turn and all that stuff, but new cars for sure, right? Is that something that would be good for dealers to invest time in doing?
Absolutely. So if you happen to have, if you're managing multiple locations, you can use APIs to make those, updates throughout GMB, which will make that all of these changes that we're talking about just easier. Mm-hmm. But for sure, products, if you have vehicles that you want to list on there, that can all be done within the container of Google My Business. And really, we want to anchor in bringing as much content to the forefront for a customer to find and understand what we have to offer as a dealership to GMB. And so parts, I think your suggestion on any parts, definitely highlighting service, whether that's, through photos of your team members in action, or vehicles, it would be really great to do. And again, you'll be able to see through your analytics, are people responding? Does this change behavior? So I recommend trying it, and it is a best practice that we talk about as well.
Yeah. Yeah, right on. So, all right, before we completely move away from GMB, there's one last thing that I wanted to cover just holistically, and that's the accuracy of the information, and not just on the GMB itself, but the local directories, and then in relationship to your website. Like, how critical is it for us to make sure that all that information matches, right? Because does it impact us negatively if it doesn't? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a great question. And as hours change, it is, it could become hard to keep that up, but it is so important, not only to make sure that somebody is finding your dealership, calling you when you're open, but also as we talk about, ranking and keeping accurate information. And that allows you to help show up in the right searches. I will give an example that is not automotive related, but, during previous months of COVID, I was looking to see if a restaurant was open. I was looking at their Google My Business listings. The hours were not updated, and they differed from their website. And just as a customer, I was looking to engage with their business. Their GMB listing said they were closed. And so, of course, I took that at face value. And upon further investigation, they were not. So it is not only important for ranking, but it's just a consideration point to say you don't know who you could be winning or losing out on to come into your dealership for service or for showroom without having accuracy there.
Yeah. How frustrating is it for you to see those sorts of things? You're like, oh, why?
Exactly.
Oh, that's cool. All right. So I wanted to kind of shift things a little bit and talk about search. I know that there's been a couple of changes this year, so maybe we can talk about that, just high level. Like, what does that mean? As dealers, what should we be looking for in those changes, if anything?
Sure. I can speak specifically to search more broadly in terms of customer trends, or do you want me to dive into a specific topic first?
Yeah, no, just let's just cover the
whole.
Just how, if it impacts us in any way or not, and
Sure.
And
admittedly, this has been a year that has been marked by change. We're still going through it. We are, very data focused company. Search, we know for a fact, is highly correlated to vehicle sales. So it is very important to your business. We can see the trends, we can see the correlation, and we can see this over time. It's not just a moment in time. This year has been no different in that way either. And we have seen customers still come to search to find out information. It's still, even through this year, the number one source that's used by auto purchasers, and it informs and it influences them in their decision-making process when they're researching vehicles. So I just want to say, regardless of the market conditions, that is still holding true. And we know at the end of the day, businesses have the same fundamental goals. Every dealership wants to sell a car. They want to increase their sales. They want to improve their profitability, return on investment. And search gives you all of that. It gives you the reach to the people who are looking for you in the moment. It gives you the effectiveness because you're only paying, when somebody is clicking on that link and actually moving into your website. And then you have the efficiency piece of it. So as we're looking at making sure that we are in the market when people are looking for us, it is the number one place that they are looking for information still.
Yeah, no, it's when you think about capturing consumer intent, right? What better place to be? With COVID and the current situation, have you seen spikes in searchability or people clicks going up and things like that? Like, have you guys seen a spike?
We've seen a few interesting trends this year. I will say, just right out of the bat, very relevant, is that we have seen the searches for the terms dealership near me, and that is correlated directly to search. What I want to talk about too is in terms of changes that you mentioned over the course of the year, there have been a lot of incentives in the market. We have seen the searches directly correlate with interest in those incentives. And we know that also has, we've seen SAR continue to increase as well. And so the behavior change that we're seeing this year is that people are really looking for those deals. They're really looking for those incentives. And so that would be one of the standout changes that I've seen happen this the last 6 months.
Yeah. Now, to get a little bit more specific on those changes that we talked about earlier, like in particular, the long tail keyword change. Does that impact us in any way, shape, or form? Should we be kind of adjusting our strategies in some way to accommodate for that?
So it's a great question. I recommend that you still use your keyword planning tools to make sure that you have as many keywords that are relevant to your business, your vehicles, your parts and service needs as possible in your campaigns, because we need those keywords in the tools in order to serve the right ad to the right person in the right moment. So while there have been changes in reporting that are, that are related to privacy, we want to make sure that that is not influencing your strategy, because we don't want you to lose out on somebody because you haven't seen a keyword pull into your report. So I still recommend use your keyword planning tools. If you're using an agency, still talk to your agency, use your own analytics to understand consumer behavior as much as possible. But really, searches are happening. They're happening for your dealership. They're happening for the vehicles you have on the lot. And we still want you to make sure that you're present for those.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I know there's I don't know if conversations, but I've had conversations with dealers about, the impact of it. And to your point, it's like, listen, nothing's really changed in that sense. Like, let's keep after it. And the ones that are performing the best, we're still going to be able to see those, and we can create our strategies around that. So
that's right.
So one thing that I wanted to talk to you is something that I'm noticing on my end, and I don't know if it's just unique to my situation or the dealers that I'm working with, but it has me a little concerned. I'm seeing a lot of people, a lot of decision makers, either significantly reduce their SEM budgets or do away without them, altogether. Relying heavily on social, and kind of claiming that's going to be that's going to make up, right? And for me, like, my strategy has always been 4 pillars: SEO, SEM, social, and display. Like, I feel that if a dealer does those 4 things really, really well, they're going to connect with the majority of the audience that they're going to get anywhere else, whether it be traditional or whether it be third-party vendors and things of that nature. And so if we remove that part from the equation, I think that it's kind of dangerous. And I kind of wanted to get your take on that, because like I said, I'm a little concerned.
So I'll speak to it from the consumer behavior point of view. So that's what we are, we're always looking at, is what is happening for our customers. How are they finding the dealerships? And I mentioned this earlier. So search is highly correlated to vehicle sales. And so it's not only great to understand what the behavior is and what people are doing, but also to understand, how do I reach that person in that moment so that you don't lose them to a competing dealership. I will say just a few, points of information. We are still seeing searches for new vehicle sales increase year over year. And we are seeing searches for used vehicle sales increase year over year. And so I really challenge the audience, if they're not using search in their marketing mix, to look at why and who they could potentially be missing out on to move into their dealership for a vehicle sale, because this is happening, and we're seeing the increases over the same time in 2019. The other thing I want to say is I recommend everybody, of course, look at your analytics. What is working best for your dealership, and what is bringing you a really strong return on investment? And we actually released earlier this year a tool that will help dealers do that. It's called, it's a return on investment calculator. And so you can actually put in and say, how many vehicles do I want to sell this month? How can search help me? What do I need to do to get there? What does the return on investment need to look like? And you can track that over time. So I think that's also another really great way to understand what search is doing for your business. And you can use that, of course, for any of our other products as well. But the idea is that we want search, we want your experience with Google to help drive more sales and drive more profitability for your dealership, and be a lever that is doing that, not a lever that that is feeling wasteful in any way. And so now the dealers and your audience will have this tool in their hands to do exactly that, and then make decisions that are right for their business, because you have the data, you have the information, and you'll know where to move your media mix based on your business objective.
Sure. Now, is there a strategy, or, I know that there's no one size fits all, but are there best practices when it comes to building your SEM campaigns that can help, that are, specific for dealers? Anything that you guys recommend?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we do have a strategy, and we actually have a Google Dealer Guidebook that we have in the market that has all of that strategy laid out. So we built it specifically for automotive dealers, and it's really meant to give the guidebook really to execute Google across search or any of our other products for you in particular. Coming out of that, though, just a few things to hit on is, we want to make sure that you are present for not only your dealership name, but also all of the models that you have on the lot and that you want to sell. So that is, of course, that's going to be priority one. The next, if you have additional budget and you want to continue to invest in search, we recommend you actually go more to what we call segment searches, which are the keywords like 2020 truck near me, for example. And those are important because we're actually seeing more people be undecided in their search process and in their decision-making process. And so with, incentives coming to market, they want to then understand, well, what are the best trucks near me? What are my options available? And so being present for those types of keywords helps you build your consideration for your dealership as well. So I would say then you start to move up into those areas to make sure that you are being found if a shopper is more undecided.
Right on. And by the way, just for everybody tuning in, I'm going to put a link to the guidebook and to the ROI calculator. All that stuff's going to be in the show notes. If you're watching this on my YouTube channel, then go into the video descriptions for links there. But I definitely want to make sure that you guys have access to all this cool stuff that you can be using to just make better decisions and do what's right for your specific stores. So listen, this has been awesome. Thank you so much. I did want to kind of end things talking about the analytics side of things. So GA, I guess I'll start with kind of my frustration, and you can tell me, we can kind of evolve the conversation from there. But one of the things that's really frustrating on my end is I consult with dealers and I conduct audits of their business is, oftentimes they go into their analytics and they don't even have goals set up. So it's very, very difficult for us to measure anything if there's no objective, right? But, I was kind of hoping with you to go a little bit further than just, measuring phone calls, emails, that sort of thing, because that's a given. But what are the things that we need to be looking at in the GA that really talks about quality of traffic, right? Because when you think about it, only like out of, let's say out of 100 people that we drive to our websites through all these different channels, maybe 10 to 15 of them are going to complete an action on the website. The rest are just, doing things in kind of in the portal, but they are doing things that are conducive to purchases. We're just not tracking those things. So what are kind of some of the behaviors that we need to be looking at?
So I think if you're starting off with Google Analytics and you're just putting the tags on the site, it's track a lot, because you're gathering information. So you want to understand what time spent on site, time spent on web pages looks like, what your conversions look like across each one of those KPIs that you talked about, BDP views, lead forms, booking appointments, all of that. Information gathering at that point. If you're further down and you have all of that set up and aligned in a really clean and streamlined way so you can make sense of that information and act upon it, because that's really at the end of the day what you want to do is have the information, but then use it to make future-based decisions that help your business. And so if you're further down the path, to your point around like conversions, we definitely want you to track those, and we want you to look at those over time and assess that with what it looks like on your marketing mix. Did your conversions increase in a certain way, and did that align with changes that you made in your marketing mix across the board? Because Google Analytics allows you to see not only Google properties, but everything that's driving traffic to your site, and really investigate that. Spend some time with that information to look at what levers are you pulling in your media mix that are driving those conversions. And so it's a very, it's a simpler way for attribution, but also a really important place to start. Then you can start to understand what actions on my site are likely to produce somebody coming into the dealership, or if you're online retailing, somebody to continue down that path online. And this all takes time, of course, but it's definitely worth the time, the investigation, having somebody, if you're doing it in your dealership, dedicated to this, if you're working with agency or partners, have them walk through it with you and talk through it. Because then the story starts to unfold. You start to understand, for example, store visits. Google, we have a measurement of store visits, so we can help you understand what your media did to drive people in store. Are those metrics changing over time? Are people who book an appointment, maybe it's a low percentage, but those people then you get into the showroom. So they're high value to you as well. So once you have an understanding of what the behavior on that site is doing for your business, then you start to assign that value to it. So you may understand that I want to receive a lot of phone calls this month because I know that phone calls coming in through my site then turn into people coming into my showroom for sales or service. And then you might value that differently. And then that value actually plays directly back into your media mix. So then you can work with Google Ads, you can reset your search strategy, and then you can start to bid to those conversions that have maximum value to you. So you're really able to use the analytics to dive in to say, how am I spending my money and making sure that that media investment is turning into the highest value actions for my business as possible.
Yeah, you know what? I really like that point too, because you got to understand, in order to grow, you need to know, right? You got to know your business in order to grow it. And to your point, if phone calls is the thing that you can directly attribute to, people actually walking into your showroom, and you have these sources identified that are driving the most calls, then, triple down on those things, right? And the ones that are not, then obviously they're not working for you, or they're not creating that action that you need. But man, when you don't have even goals set up and stuff, it's like, what are you measuring here? It's just, and then it makes it easier for vendors to and not that I'm, against vendors, I'm a vendor myself, but it makes it easier for them to just show up with a report that says you got all this activity, but okay, great, that's awesome. But what is that activity doing is really what we need to start looking at things, kind of diving a little bit deeper into it. So
that's exactly right. That activity should be a measure of what's to come. And you can influence that activity once you know what is most beneficial for your particular business and dealership. Yeah.
So do you think, maybe I'm putting you on the spot here, I hope I'm not, but do you think that it's advantageous in the world that we live in today to have a person at the dealership that's an employee of the dealership that is only doing that, like setting up analytics, reviewing analytics, using that data to help the dealership make decisions?
I think if you have somebody in your dealership to do that, that is great. Like that's wonderful. I think your agency partners can do that with you as well. As long as we're having the dialogue and asking the right questions. And so whether that lives within the store or whether that lives within an agency partner, those are both fine, but it is important to dedicate time monthly, I would say at minimum monthly, to look at your online analytics and really understand what they're driving for your business. So whether they're in store or not, we still need to be having the conversations and the meetings and asking these questions to really understand, what is this media, what is this metric doing to actually drive my business? What you care about at the end of the day is vehicle sales, getting people into the service lane and being profitable. And so that's what the media should be working hard to do for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Last question here before I ask you the question that I ask everybody that comes on the show, and it has to do with how do we connect, in particular, social and SEM, right? Like, is there a way that they correlate? Is there a best practice? Like, I believe in omni-channel type of solution. So same look, same feel. You want that message to permeate between all those four pillars, so to speak, so that the customer, wherever they are, they get that same message. There's nothing worse in the car business, in my opinion, to see an ad somewhere that says something, and then you see the same ad somewhere else with different information, where there's already distrust within the industry, and those kinds of practices just kind of feeds into that. And so, just with the increases and the impacts that I'm seeing within those two, what do you recommend? How can we work with those together?
Yeah, so I'll address it from the really from the Google perspective across all of our products, and I think that will also move over to your question directly around social and search. So if we look at the Google ecosystem with search, display ads, and YouTube ads, we have the ability to target by audience, and I know you do, within the social ecosystem as well. And so what you're saying is you're a particular audience, and as a particular audience, you want to see consistent messaging that resonates with you. And that's really the best practice for the dealerships is around your point of aligned creative, regardless of the format. What are you trying to communicate to your particular audience? And making sure that everything that you're putting in the market is doing that at the time. So if that message is a 0% APR offer for the month, great. But let's make sure that that message is consistent across every ad that your particular audiences are going to see. And then it's not deviating. I think, the make and model, those are important features to make sure that you have consistency on as well. But you have a brand. Your dealership has a brand that you are trying to portray online. And so I like the way you said it, which is everything should be consistent no matter what platform you're on. And so, for example, with YouTube and search, we would use that same 0% APR messaging. The essence of that would be the same. The creative outlet is different. You will have a video ad versus a search ad. Right. But the look and feel, the tone is the same for the right audience, and is asking them to do what you want them to do. Right on.
All right, Lissette, thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it. Lots of good information here. So thank you. There is one question that I ask everybody that comes on the show, and that question is, where do you see the automotive industry headed in the next 5 years, and why?
So I love this question, and I love that you ask everybody that comes on the show. I am very bullish about online retailing, and within the online retailing umbrella, about the industry delivering frictionless shopping experiences to their customers. So whether that is a complete online end-to-end research to purchase process through your dealership website, that is amazing, and that is not going anywhere. We should continue to have these conversations around that. But also, if they want to choose to walk into your showroom to assess the trade-in in person, that is very seamless for your customer, whether they're completing it fully online or they're walking into your showroom at any given point. So I see the industry in the next several years really moving into this space. Customers have the ability to transact online in every other area of their life. And automotive, as of this year, has made a lot of strides in this direction, and I don't see it slowing down.
Yeah, no, I love that you said it that way, because that's exactly what it is. I don't like where digital retailing is right now with the buy online experience, because that's not what we're offering customers. But I agree that there should be a kind of a hybrid sort of a deal. And to add to that, I would say every time the customer completes an action online, we should reward the customer with time saved. Congratulations, Mr. Customer, you just saved X amount of time. Every step that they complete, And so I think that if we do that, then it's going to be a better thing, because that's ultimately what the customers want. Nobody wants to go to a dealership and sit there for 5 hours, and you know what I mean? That's the part of the experience that just sucks. So anyway, thank you so much for that. Thank you for doing this. Really appreciate it. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as usual, we'll talk later.
We only host a well-respected. The vendor LexisNexis. We don't sell digital marketing.
What you do?
We inspect it with our DT vendor management solutions. We come in like the EPA to clear out the pollution.
Take the trash
Go
out.
keep your P&L clean. Your inventory lean.
From product pitches, meetings to cost negotiations, your vendors have you swamped. You have cars to sell, but most of your time goes in managing your vendor relationships. Wouldn't it help to have someone navigate the way ahead? Enter Dealer Talk Vendor Management Solutions, a filter between you and your vendor so you only have to deal with what's most important. We inspect your digital data to get optimum results for your money. Here's what we do. Give you an accurate idea of what's working and what's not for every digital service. Get vendors to submit monthly highlights, lowlights, and recommendations. Sift through their data to give you those metrics that matter. Evaluate all package, content, or cost changes and product pitches. Do monthly marketing budget analysis to ensure better ROIs. Finally, we give you concise reports and monthly videos with actionable insights. Now, you can focus on what really matters, selling cars. Contact us today and your first 30 days are free. Let's build your business together.